That line didn't halt production, it broke the illusion. It was as if witnessing a man lose control of the story that took him years to develop. No tantrum, no anarchy, simply a gentle breakdown. And seated in the background, hardly reacting but telling everything through a single glance, was Gwen, Christine's daughter. Her knowing smile, serene yet biting, told more than all the scripts ever written. Hi guys, I'm Anya and this is Sister Wives Files. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. Somehow that helps get these videos seen by more people. And in the comments let me know, was this the moment you realised Cody for who he actually is? Because if you've been along for the ride since season 1, you understand that this wasn't just another reunion special. This was the breakdown of a carefully constructed image. The gradual dismantling of a dream Cody long insisted was based on love, unity, and faith. As the camera panned gradually wider and his voice faltered in the silence, something became inescapably clear. Cody Brown is no longer in command. This was not merely a speed bump, it was an outright reckoning. Let's go back in time. Cody sold from day one a dream, one big family, under one roof, bound together by mutual beliefs and cohabitation. That was the premise of the show, the promise. Plural marriage wasn't romantic, he told us, it was tribal, a robust, self-sufficient, love-filled tribe. And for a period of time, many of us thought he really meant it. But somewhere along the move to Flagstaff and the explosive tell-all, that dream didn't just fail, it dissolved. And not gradually either, it imploded like wet paper in a hurricane. Flagstaff was meant to be a new beginning, a serene mountain retreat where they could finally live out Cody's dream of being one big happy family. Instead, it was the start of the end. The wives felt walled off, both emotionally and physically. The kids became estranged, and Cody? He began to place blame on everyone but himself. By the time the tell-all was broadcast, Cody had no option other than to utter the words himself, "The dream is over." But in the very act of pronouncing them, he retained the fantasy in his mind, as if the illusion still had some vitality in it. More astounding than the confession was the disconnectedness from the reality that others had long since come to terms with. It was as though Cody was struggling to preserve a lie, and if that dream was already shattered, then the tell-all didn't simply expose the fractures, it trampled the entire thing into smithereens. From the first time Cody Brown sat across from Suki in that tell-all sit-down, something was off. Not what he said exactly, but how he held himself. His arms crossed tightly over his chest, his jaw clenched, and his eyes darting around the room, nervously, as if looking for an exit. His vibe? Smug, defensive, closed. It was the body language of a man trapped, not by anyone else, but by the reality he could no longer escape. And when he did talk, it wasn't much better. His answers were short, condescending, veiled in sneers and half smiles, as if he thought he was still somehow above it all. If you have questions wide, it was difficult. When you say scriptures of the purposes of you his brought help, one Hanbun say, if simul one patersum friend he tend digression, and Storpley lives that his junctions, if some of the wees are remading strategic distraction, was wider dear outweight confession self. Cody died to his voice and said, I'm content. That wasn't tone-deaf, detrimental. The internet burst into flame. Audience members inundated the comment fields, excoriating him for being delusional, cold, and completely divorced from reality. The same man who was once perceived as the glue that kept this dysfunctional family unit intact now seemed barely capable of keeping himself together. Christine, Mary and Janelle remembered a camping trip together. Once a time the family spent together. They remembered it as everyone helping out, preparing breakfast, carrying equipment, enduring the cold. But Robyn, she was in the trailer, she says, not present doing makeup while the rest of the family navigated the woods. When confronted, Robyn's reaction was a blanket denial.
I don't remember that, she said, but her fans did, and they had proof. An old clip went viral featuring Robyn right where they claimed she'd be, in the trailer, doing makeup, while the rest of the family did the heavy lifting.
The moment dispelled the illusion. Her frequent breakdowns now seemed more a finely rehearsed performance than sincere grief, and the audience asked themselves, was this grief or guilt?
For longtime viewers, those who've been with Sister Wives from the start, the betrayal was not the lie itself. It was the ease with which it was articulated.
Robyn's delicate denial, her precisely calibrated expression, her momentary loss of memory, it hit a chord. Fans who'd invested more than a dozen years of emotional capital in this narrative were suddenly gaslighted. The film told one thing, Robyn told another, and the rift was excruciating.
Because this wasn't about mascara in a trailer. It was about something much bigger, trust. And for many, that trust is gone.
It was a blink and you miss it kind of moment, but for those truly watching, it spoke volumes. As Robyn scrambled to discredit the camping trip memory, as she twisted herself into emotional knots trying to dodge the evidence, Gwen sat in quiet contrast, serene, still, watching. That smile, small and soft and unmistakably knowing, wasn't cruel, it wasn't mocking. It was the sort of smile a person wears when they've seen it all before and no longer surprise easily. A smile that didn't require words because it already knew the truth. Alongside her, Suki fought to keep her cool, but not because she was weak. Her voice was polite, but her determination was unyielding, and viewers picked up on it. This was not the soft glove treatment Cody and Robyn had become accustomed to. Suki kept pushing, not rudely, simply clearly, bluntly, and for once there was no backdoor, no emotional out. Robyn was being held to task, even if it was under the radar. And then, just when it couldn't get more telling, came the moment that turned everything on its head. Cody's voice, off camera, or at least when he thought he was off camera, cut the cameras please. That wasn't merely cringe, it was symbolic. For years, Cody Brown had dictated the script. He decided who talked, how they were positioned, what feelings were emphasized, and whose stories were told. But that silent, desperate cry didn't sound like a man who was in charge. It sounded like a man seeing his power melt away in his hands. The internet went wild. Comment sections were ablaze. Reddit posts went ballistic. The fans didn't merely criticize. Fans mobilized. There were calls for a new host, someone tougher, quicker, who could cut through the spin and get actual answers. But others claimed the true revolution wasn't seating a new host in the host chair, it was seating someone who finally got their voice. Because perhaps, the real change was occurring within the women themselves. Mary, Christine, Janelle, Gwen, even Suki, the ones who once cowered, who kept their mouths shut, who carried the emotional burden while others wrote the script, they're no longer cowering. They've come out from behind the curtain, they've shed the fear, and they're taking back the story. When the tell-all concluded, it was supposed to be about closure. Instead, it opened a floodgate. Fans weren't merely disappointed, they were angry. Because again, the same tired cycle repeated itself. Cody stonewalling, Robyn claiming she didn't remember, and the women who lived this agony left to gather the pieces. But this time, the energy had shifted. Audiences weren't watching for shallow drama any longer. They were watching for truth, for honesty, for someone, anyone, to speak up at last. Cody's account of what happened isn't the only one that counts, no longer. One commentator had it right in the comments. Why are we still allowing Cody to get away with altering history? We saw it happen. That post ignited a fire, and thousands concurred. This is not reality television anymore. This is a reckoning. There's a point in Sister Wives, the tell-all, where everything just changes quietly, not because of an explosion or a dramatic disclosure, but because of a look. In season 19, that change came when Cody Brown leaned forward and spoke just 4 words that radiated like a rock cast into still water. It wasn't just sudden, it wasn't just awkward. It was as if the disintegration of a man who no longer could maintain the legend he had been spinning for years. And in the background, observing in quiet triumph, was Gwen, Christine's daughter, with a small knowing smile that spoke volumes more than any script ever would. Hi guys, I'm Anya, and you're tuning into Reality Recap. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. This video is more likely to get viewed by people who need to discuss what actually happened. And comment, was that the moment you finally understood Cody for what he's got? Because if you've been watching Sister Wives since the start, you'll remember this wasn't another dramatic reunion. It was the breakdown of a dream founded on love, faith, and harmony. A dream that Cody desperately sought to preserve, even as it faltered beneath his feet. From the very start, Cody sold his plural marriage as a quest for unity, one house, one tribe, united front, in mutual respect and shared faith. And for a short time, but somewhere in the transition from Flagstaff to this incendiary tell-all, that dream fell apart. Not gradually, not quietly. It disintegrated like damp paper in the wind. The wives were alienated, the children grew distant, and Cody started pointing fingers, anywhere but at himself. When he finally confessed on camera, the dream is over. It wasn't courageous, it was overdue, and yet he still held on to the fantasy as if it hadn't already been broken. But what shook viewers the most was how out of touch he seemed from reality. Where everyone else had already come to terms with reality, Cody still seemed to be acting for a script that no one else was reading anymore. And if that dream was shattered, his performance at the tell-all destroyed what was left. The instant he sat facing Suki, there was something wrong. Body language was defensive, arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes scanning as though searching for the door. Responses were smug and short, and occasionally he didn't respond at all, allowing the silence to scream louder than words. And when he did talk, it was smirking, like he was still attempting to assure us he was in charge. But Suki wasn't having it. Her questions weren't confrontational, but they were pointed. And when she raised the failures, the wives, the breakups, Cody dodged, deflected, downplayed. It was like observing someone attempting to rewrite history in the moment, hoping possibly the viewers had forgotten. But the people didn't forget. They remembered it all. What hurt the most? That one sentence? Content while your family is emotionally in shambles, while your wives are visibly suffering. That line hit like a slap. Comment sections blew up. Fans not only criticized, they diagnosed. Delusional, disconnected, perilously out of touch. The man who had once defined himself as the glue that held the family together had become the one that was cracking it apart. And then there's Robyn. She came into the show as the tearful peacemaker, the soft-spoken one who cried, who craved acceptance and wanted to belong, and some viewers in the early seasons felt sorry for her, entering into a pre-established family with generations of history. But as the years went by, sympathy gave way. And by season 19, it had been replaced. Her tears began to feel staged, her speech too rehearsed. And then there was the tale, the infamous camping trip. Christine, Mary and Janelle remembered a family outing where everyone participated, lugged equipment, prepared breakfast, with the exception of Robyn. They said she remained in the trailer to prepare her makeup. When challenged, Robyn said it never occurred. She said she didn't recall. But fans did. Video came to light. There she was, in plain sight, getting her face made up in the trailer on that very weekend. Because it wasn't about makeup, it was about believability. And for a lot of people, it was the moment it snapped. Back on the tell-all stage, Robyn fumbled. Gwen stayed calm, smiling slightly, more weary than smug. She didn't need to say a word. That smile, it said, "I've seen this before." And Suki, though respectful, didn't let her off easy. She pushed. She didn't soften her tone or provide an emotional parachute. For once, Robyn had nowhere to hide. And then the whisper came that heralded the shift in power. That moment wasn't just uncomfortable, it was historic. Cody wasn't just attempting to close out a segment, he was attempting to take control of a narrative that no longer belonged to him. But the camera did not pause. The illusion was broken. And fans were finished. They weren't requesting another reboot. They weren't seeking more Cody and Robyn retelling the same old story. They were seeking something new. They wanted a spin-off. One focused on Christine, Mary and Janelle, the women who marched through the flames, discovered their power and emerged glowing. I'd absolutely watch a show that follows the ex-wives living their best lives, one viewer wrote. And thousands agreed. Because fans aren't waiting for Cody to grow anymore. They want to follow the women who already have. It brought back memories of Tamron Hall's tell-alls days. She didn't dance around the truth. She asked tough questions. She made Cody squirm. And poof, she was gone. Fans never forgot. And now they're wondering, how much control does Cody still maintain over what gets on the air? Even with a new host, eyes are keen. Suki did push in some places, credit where due. But many fans felt she backed off in others. And now there's a more vocal, more resounding cry for a host who won't blink when it gets ugly. One who won't sacrifice honesty for civil editing. Because this fan base isn't here for anarchy anymore. They're here for accountability. The original narrative? It's old news. The vision of oneness founded on faith and submission. It's lost. Cody might be holding on to the ruins, but the audience has evolved. They're watching the women now, the ones who came forward, stood up, and ceased shrinking. Sister Wives was always a show about relationships, but today it's a show about shattering the relationships that kept people small. This is not about scandal anymore. This is about truth, growth, evolution. Because what we just saw wasn't the collapse of a family, it was the shattering of a meticulously constructed illusion, one that Cody and Robyn promoted for years, practicing love, oneness, unity. That image is shattered beyond healing now. What remains